Moving ahead with the next session on From Knowledge to Action, Empowering Senior Leaders Through Strategic Learning Interventions by Mr. Amit Barua, Director at XED. Can we have a big round of applause for Mr. Amit? Amit is a senior leader with over 24 years of experience in learning and development, training and facilitation, training management, and executive education. He is a certified instructional designer, certified learning ROI, professional adult learning specialist, and a leadership and behavioral trainer. Amit is a highly skilled professional with a proven track record in learning and development, executive education, and project management. He served as a program director for the Center for Executive Education at the Indian High School of Business, ISB, Hyderabad, India for nearly a decade. During his tenure at ISB, Amit led the design, development, and delivery of both open and custom design executive education programs. As the profit center head, he was responsible for driving revenue, growth, and profitability for the center while working closely with the institution's senior leadership to develop and execute ISB's strategy. In this role, he played a crucial part in addressing the evolving learning needs of organizations and individuals in the global business landscape. His leadership at ISB resulted in significant growth in the center's revenue, expansion of program offerings, and enhanced industry reputation. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, all, and indeed a pleasure interacting with all of you all this morning. The topic of my talk this morning is From Knowledge to Action, Empowering Senior Leaders Through Strategic Learning Interventions. While ISB was my previous stint, I am for the last 2.5 years with XED as Executive Development, as a director with them. I have mentioned here from knowledge to action. And why do I say from knowledge to action? Because increasingly, when we are doing work for senior leaders across the large and MNC organizations in India and across the globe, we are consistently hearing this again and again, that the senior leadership and sponsors of the program want the learning interventions to be to have some outcome. They need some goals to be achieved. They need to have actionables at the end of every learning intervention, which means that the learning interventions need to be a means to an end and not an end in itself. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the subsequent slides. So we see that transformation is old news, and in fact the future is industry convergence. We are all used to categorizing companies into industry buckets. For example, a bank into a banking industry, a pharmaceutical company into a pharmaceutical industry, broking into a broking industry, a life insurance company into a life insurance industry. But if you speak to a senior banker at the top-notch banks today, and you ask them what are those aspects which they are most fearful about today, they would say that they are most fearful today about competition from the unknown, not competition from the bank next door. Because the bank next door is a known animal. They know how it will behave, they know how it will respond, they know how it functions. But when it talks about competition from the unknown, they are most fearful about that space. And this goes across industries. In fact, today, you have banks which don't have a single branch at all. There is not a single branch at all on ground. And yet, some of these banks, their CSAT scores rank right up there. Now, you'd wonder whether you'd want to categorize them as a bank, or would you want to categorize such institutions as a technology-led organization. You look nearer home, and you look at Zerodha. Zerodha, to a large extent, has disrupted the broking industry. Now, you'll again wonder whether you'd want to call Zerodha, you'd want to categorize it as a broking company, or would you want to categorize it as a technology-led organization. So yes, there is convergence happening, and bucketing into industries is going to be something that's going to be back out there, and it's convergence that's happening in the future. Today, in fact, AI, the power of AI is dramatically transforming the way we live and work. My previous colleague Rishali spoke a bit about that. In fact, AI is a great skill leveler. Not very long back, we used to have a role of that of a content writer in our learning fraternity. Now, the content writer used to write program content for all of us, but specifically content for maybe asynchronous learning work. Now, that role is more or less redundant. The gap between a good content writer and a not so good content writer is diminished completely. In fact, that gap may not be existing at all. So yes, AI is a great skill leveler. A few days back, I was in a talk, and I was listening to a talk at Oxford University, and the dean of the XED Business School was talking about AI. His area of research is AI. And he says that 3 years, he expects, and this is what he believes, he says that 3 years to 5 years down the line, he believes that AI will take over, will do a far better job than most human skills. So they'll take over those human skills and be able to do a far better job on those skills. In areas where it is not able to do a far better job, it will at least replicate those skills. That's what he says. And this was not very long back. It was a couple of days back when I was hearing, and it's coming from somebody who's the dean of Oxford University. Now, therefore, in that kind of a context, what are those skills that are becoming more and more relevant today? Rishali spoke about some of them, and those are the power skills. What are power skills? The skills to be able to empathize, to be able to show compassion, to be able to show, to be able to negotiate, to be able to influence, to manage a team, to show leadership. These are skills that are becoming more and more relevant. A lot of other skills, AI is going to take over those skills in a few years from now. Now, therefore, what are those skills that CXOs need to have? Now, George Burson, who is a renowned author and a global management consultant in the space of talent management, he says that CXOs need to have T-shaped skills, which are the breadth of skills and the depth of skills. Now, when we say breadth of skills, we are talking about skills like project management, client consulting, sales recruiting, and so on. And when we're talking of depth of skills, we're talking of skills like pipeline management, channel management, executive selling, and so on. Now, let's take this further to our typical learning and development structure and framework. Now, this is our typical learning and development structure and framework. We start with learning needs assessment. At our end, we call it diagnostic study. Then we go on to learning design, and post which we develop content for that learning design that we are putting together. We then go to implement the learning solution, and finally we want to track the outcome of that learning intervention that we deployed. Now, at our end, when we talk of diagnostic study, what is it that we're talking of? And I spoke about it at the start, which is actionable outcome. Now, typically in a diagnostic study that we may want to conduct, we'd want to understand, and that's what we do at our end, we'd want to understand what are those near, medium, and long-term goals and strategies that the organization is chasing. To be able to meet those near, medium, and long-term goals and strategies, what are those competencies and capabilities does the organization require to have internally? What among those capabilities and competencies that the organization have, and what is the gap? Therefore, where is it that more honing of skills needs to happen? Yeah? And that's the starting point of any learning work that we will do. It needs to be linked to this. It needs to be a means to an end and not an end in itself. So we are saying that the objective of a diagnostic study, or we could call it a learning needs assessment, is to align the senior leadership learning intervention to the near, medium, and long-term goals of the organization. And the better we are able to do this, the better would be the buy-in for the learning intervention, for the senior leadership intervention from stakeholders and sponsors of the program. Now, typically, how do we go about conducting a diagnostic study? We go about doing it in a twofold format. First is taking secondary information, and the second one is primary information. In secondary information, once we have an NDA signed with the organization that we are working with, we would want to collect available competency frameworks, we'd want to collect KRA documents pertaining to those folks for whom any intervention may be envisaged. We would want to look at collecting a strategy document, medium and long-term strategy documents. Once we have those documents, we move to collecting data in the primary information stage. Here, we would typically like to have in-depth one-on-one interviews. We'd conduct focus group discussions and structured questionnaires. We'd use these formats. Now, typically, what we would do when we are talking about in-depth interviews is that once we have interacted with members of the HR team within the organization, once we've interacted with the learning team members, we would then want to interact with the senior-most leadership of that organization. The objective of that interaction and that interview is to understand from them what are those medium, near, and long-term goals and strategies that the organization is trying to chase. And once we have that information, then we would like to interview folks who are prospective participants for whom any learning intervention is being envisaged. And then finally, we'd want to interact with reportees to those prospective participants for whom the learning intervention is being envisaged to close the loop. All of this work would then culminate into a diagnostic study report, which then becomes your base document to start any learning design work. Now, the diagnostic study could in fact also throw out stuff which may not be relevant to learning, and intervention may have to be done elsewhere other than in learning. It may be closing some operational loops, closing some operational gaps, but it will definitely give you a lot of information for you to be able to build on your learning, intervention, and design work. And any other information that it throws out is also useful for the organization at the end of the day. Once we have the diagnostic study in place, then we work towards the learning design. The learning design, and again, Rishali did speak about some areas within this. The learning design could be as short as something like a 2 or 3 day intervention. We call it more like an event-based intervention. Or it could be a more structured developmental journey, a long duration developmental journey. What happens when you do a developmental journey over a period of time is that people take in learning, it seeps in better. That journey could have, for example, it could have in-person classrooms built in inside of that, within that. It could have synchronous learning, live interactions, live classroom sessions built into that. It could have asynchronous learning built into that. Typically, when do we deploy asynchronous learning? And I'll give an example here. Asynchronous learning, we generally end up deploying when there are some specific capabilities that need to be addressed for specific folks who are part of that entire learning group. For example, you may have done an assessment, a Hogan assessment or a 360-degree prior to the learning assessment, where you've put all of them through that assessment there, and that has thrown out various reports. And those reports have come out with specific gap areas that need to be addressed for a person A, person B, person C, person D, all of whom may be forming a cohort of senior leadership for whom an intervention is being put together. Now, but no two people may be having same capability gaps that need to be addressed. So you can't address it through a one-size-fits-all kind of a intervention. So you kind of assign asynchronous learning electives to these folks. So what happens is that supposing there is a learner A, he would be attending a journey as a part of a larger group, and he would be taking that journey with the rest of the group. And simultaneously, parallelly, he would also be taking a detour where he takes another track where he completes various electives during that journey while he is with the rest of the group. Industry immersions is again another thing we've seen that resonates very well across senior leadership groups, not only in India. For all work that we do globally, we do a lot of work in the UAE, we do a lot of work in the US, and other parts of South Asia. And across we see that learning immersions, and again, Rishali did speak about, did touch upon that, industry immersions or experiential learning interventions fit in very well, they resonate very well. Just last week, I was with a group of a large senior group. This is CEO -1, CEO -2 level of a large MNC pharmaceutical, India-based pharmaceutical company. And I was with them in London. And we took them as a part of an intervention that we were doing for them, and we took them for an immersion over there. That was just last week. And we took them to the Tate Modern Art Gallery, for anyone who knows Tate Modern Art Gallery, for an experiential learning immersion as a part of the entire larger journey which they were attending in London. And they were learning at the Tate Modern Art Gallery innovation through art and creativity. And they were seeing linkages, and they were seeing frameworks that were given to them in the class, and how some of those frameworks were deployed in some of that work that they are able to see at the Tate Modern Art Gallery. Now that's experiential learning they thoroughly enjoyed. They loved it. In a number of our programs, we also do pit crew immersions. Now in these pit crew immersions, we have senior leaders who are many times C-suite. They're actually changing tires of that vehicle in the pit crew immersion that's happening. And through changing of those tires and the experience that they're getting from there, they're learning team management, they're learning leadership skills. And these are senior folks, these are C-suite audiences, and they thoroughly enjoy it. I'll give you another example. Not very long back, we had taken a group as a part of their journey. One part of the leg was in Singapore. And in Singapore, one module that they were being exposed to was operational excellence. And we took them to Marina Bay Sands. Now you'd ask me, why Marina Bay Sands, and what does Marina Bay Sands have to have anything to do with operational excellence? Now for any of you all who would know, Marina Bay Sands is one of those premier hotels, one of those very premier hotels known globally. And they are structured vertically. They're 64 stories. It's a 64-story building with a boat-like shape right on top, 2 towers. And you would be surprised to know that Marina Bay Sands has the highest occupancy rates globally, as high as 98%. Their rooms are occupied 98%, very, very high. It's extremely high as per any hospitality standards, industry standards. And yet, they have the lowest waiting time, least waiting time at the check-in counters on the ground floor. So you have a situation here where they have occupancy rates as high as 98%, highest globally, and the least amount of waiting time back at the check-in counters down below. And that's not all. There is another catch to this. They work with the handicap, which most hotels globally don't have that handicap. Most hotels, when you visit, you would always see that their housekeeping rooms are on every floor. So they have a housekeeping room on every floor. So the housekeeping staff work and get the rooms cleaned up, done up in that floor. Now Marina Bay Sands, they don't have space. So their housekeeping rooms are between floors. So one housekeeping room services 5, 6, 7 floors. So which means that the housekeeping staff need to go move up and down lifts to get the rooms done up before the next person checks in. But that consumes a lot of time. And yet they achieve what they achieve. Now, if the part, and we took these participants to actually understand how they're doing this. So you see, they're learning concepts and frameworks in the class, and they go to a live environment and see how those frameworks are being deployed live in an environment like this, where operational excellence in a place like Marina Bay Sands is at a zenith. They have won awards. Their operational leaders have won awards for operational excellence. They are considered among the best globally, and they get to experience that. Those same frameworks that they understood, they see how that's being deployed there. So yes, experiential learning immersions are an experience like this is the learning that these leaders will carry with them for a long time. Now look at this. This is a snap of one is a facilitator who is conducting a session. The other is a AI version of that facilitator. Now if this is happening, it will not be very long before we have AI facilitators conducting sessions for all of us. Now, replica users fell in love with their AI chat box. Now, for those of us who are not aware, replica is an AI chat box. It helps one communicate and interact with it. They have over 600 people who say that they have fallen in love with that AI chat box. Now, if you're falling in love with the AI chat box, they again would not be very far when senior leaders will start feeling comfortable to be able to have AI coaches and interact and engage with AI coaches rather than physical coaches. In fact, that is already being deployed in some formats globally, though albeit at younger audiences, not at C-suite level work, but it's not very far. The more the setup understands and picks up, the more they will be able to engage with senior leaders, not very far. In fact, today, even in India, robo-advisors are becoming more popular than physical relationship managers in banks. Yeah, they do a better job, they come at a lesser cost. Yeah? So yes, that's happening in terms of then coming to implementation. Now we deploy our implementation through our collaborations and partnerships with Ivy League universities across the globe, from the US, from Europe, and nearer home from Singapore. From the US, we are exclusive partners with Cornell University, with UCLA, Chicago Booth, Carnegie Mellon, Michigan Ross, University of Virginia, Darden Business School. A number of those are Ivy Leagues. Brown is an Ivy League, Cornell is an Ivy League. They're among the top 8 in the world. And from Europe, we are partners with Oxford University and Cambridge University of Cambridge. In fact, this year itself, this financial year starting April, we are contracted to take 6 groups to the University of Cambridge. So senior leaders look forward to immersions like these. And in Singapore, we are partners with INSEAD, with Singapore Management University, National University of Singapore. With Ivy League University comes Ivy League faculty. So these faculty members come into the room with a lot of content, highly researched and very current. Now, these opportunities, when it's a duration of a program or a journey, senior leaders also use these opportunities for networking, and they love it. I'm again going back to the same intervention that I was present last week. When we concluded the intervention and we took feedback from these senior leaders, among other things, the senior leaders started saying that another best thing that we've experienced here is that we've had friends for life. All of them are from the same organization, but scattered globally. One of them stands up, one senior leader stands up and says that for me, collaboration has tremendously improved because all my stakeholders are sitting in the same class. So till the other day, I used to be attempting to do a lot of my work through emails, etc. That used to take time, a little more structured, more bureaucratic. But today, I just pick up the phone and the job gets done in a whiff. So yes, networking opportunities they look forward to. And lastly, the bit there is that we could deploy our interventions in any place. We could do it in Mumbai. We could do one leg in Mumbai, one leg in New York, and one leg in maybe in Singapore, another leg for an immersion in Dubai, so on and so forth. We are taking a group in the month of April to the Pittsburgh campus of Carnegie Mellon University to understand AI. That's one leg of the intervention that we are doing for them over there. Because Carnegie Mellon, for those of all who are not, it's any technology leader will want to be aligned with Carnegie Mellon. It's the place where AI was invented 50 years ago. You could believe this. That is Carnegie Mellon, and that's the place where Carnegie Mellon is when you talk of AI. That's where all the research is happening. So we're taking this group, a supply chain company, who are trying to deploy AI solutions into their supply chain pieces. And we're taking them in one of the legs to Carnegie Mellon University at Pittsburgh campus. In fact, in Mumbai, we run a number of our programs for large organizations from Bandra Kurla complex. We run some of them from Lonavala. We take them to even Alibag and so on when they want to take them out of Mumbai, but yet give them a decent experience. Lastly, I talked about assessment. And again, Vishali did touch upon that. Now we track assessment at all 4 levels of the Kirkpatrick model. In level 1, we track it through our normal happy sheets or feedback sheets. At level 2, we track it through assessments and quizzes. At level 3, we deploy peer coaching and we deploy executive coaching. I'll give an example of how executive coaching could get deployed is that during a journey which is about an 8-month journey or a 10-month journey, you may have done some assessments at the start. In most cases, some assessments get deployed at the start. I go back to the Hogan or a 360 that would have got deployed. Now the reports from there is what the coach works with these participants on. Our coaches would work with them on. And they would also, while they're working with them on these reports, they would also help them put together their IDPs, individual development plans. So by the end of the 10-month period, they would have had their IDPs in place for a work that they would have done, these coaches, during the journey of the program, 8 or 10-month journey. And lastly, in level 4, we have action learning projects that we do. We all would know what are action learning projects. And finally, we have Shark Tank projects. Now, Shark Tank projects are projects where groups who are working on those projects are actually seeking funds from the sponsors of the company, from the leadership of the company, to take them to the next stage. So we've had situations where there have been SBUs that have got hived off from the organization with the team over there, because these are projects which have been tested, prototyped and tested out there on the ground, and then they are presented to the leadership and the lead faculty who is helping them with these projects. Now, if they have received funding from the board, and they have hived it off as a separate SBU now because the prototype did a very good job. Now, if you're seeing something like this from a learning intervention, that's a lot of ROI for any sponsor of an organization who's putting money into an intervention like this. So that's the stage, and we have seen multiple SBUs, and these organizations come back to you again and again then, because they've seen so much value from those SBUs getting hived off at the end of the entire 10-month journey. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. It was lovely interacting with you all this morning. Please do visit our booth. Our booth is just outside. I'll be happy to have deeper conversations during the course of the day. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. Sir, please be on the stage for the felicitation. I would like to call upon stage Mr. Dakshit Mehta, VP Learning and Development at JP Morgan Chase & Company.